Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Locked, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined this week virtually by Trevor because I am out here at the Waco Charity Open in Waco, Texas. That's probably why Trevor looks like he's on the set of a freaking movie or something, and I'm just sitting in our Airbnb. But my audio will be a little worse. My video, if you're watching on YouTube, is definitely worse. But first off, Trevor, how are things going back at the Foundation HQ? Am I about to walk into a tornado, or what's going on back there?
There's a lot of boxes has been coming in the doors lately, and just kind of sort out when to deal with what and what works best. But pretty soon, once especially once you get back, we'll be able to drop a lot of things and get a lot of boxes out the door. Particularly some certain things that, well, at least some of the world probably knows about now because Brody Smith can't keep his mouth shut on Twitter. But did you okay that, by the way? Or did he just do that?
I took the picture.
Okay, but no, did he just respond? Was that just him being a loose cannon?
Oh yeah. He threw. I brought the rain jacket for him and Paul.
Yeah, so he just.
Actually, I brought Brody everything. So Brody's also in.
In one of our Instagram
stories wearing.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what you were about to just say, but let's at least try to keep it Connor's about to work really hard on this project here, so let's keep that on the low. Anyways, yeah, but
I mean, I kind of okayed it.
Okay.
He was like, I'm gonna take a picture and post it on the Facebook group.
All right.
And he says he put it in the collector Facebook group.
Well,
he's like, get people hyped up.
If you guys,
I was like, okay. Yeah.
If you guys are all in the know, then you know that there's a lot. But beyond the aforementioned very weird things that we were just talking about, there's a lot of other things that have come through our doors lately. More discs that once I can actually get them all ready to go and figure out when's the best time to drop them. In sometime in the near future, there's going to be a very large Discraft drop and some other things. But a lot of Discraft.
Well, you should have some more help now. The world doesn't quite know, but we hired another
helper,
another warehouse person.
Yeah, he will be definitely helping me tomorrow. That is for sure.
Yeah. Now, one thing I was looking at I get all the shipping notifications to my email, and so I was looking at all that and seeing how many boxes were coming in this week. And I told us, this is awful. I leave the week that we probably get 20 some boxes of discs and stuff. But one of the boxes that I noticed came in that I've got to get your opinion on is the EV7. The putters are finally in. I actually don't know the drop date. Do you know when they release?
I don't. I'll have to look at the email.
Yeah, we need to make sure we look into that. But yeah, I got the shipping. They finally came in. Were we right? Is it the PA3 V2? What's going on with those?
Yeah, so I forgot they were coming in, and I opened up the box and just saw putters, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I picked one up, and I was like, oh. And this is how you know it's genuine, because I picked it up not knowing what I was picking up. So if I would have felt something special, it wasn't placebo, because I thought it was part of the Discraft shipment, and I just picked it up. And you bet I didn't notice anything.
I was gonna say, and was it weighted different?
Yeah, I went and grabbed a Luna, and I was holding them next to each other, trying to figure out is there any difference? Now, here's what I'm gonna say. I do believe our suspicions are correct. I think. Well, I'll put it this way. Now that I felt the putter, it would make sense if Prodigy is the one that we're making them. I'm not gonna say
the plastic feels similar,
right? But I'm not gonna say it's no other company could have made this plastic, but it definitely lines up with the Prodigy theory for sure. Now,
interesting.
They emboss the bottom. That's something Prodigy's never done, to my knowledge, with the little EV7 logo. And what I'll say about the putter itself, the plastic feels like 350, not 350G, just regular 350, like the grippier plastic. It feels good. The putter mold itself reminds me of a hybrid between a PA3 and a PA4, because the edge is a little more square like a PA4, but it's got more of the overall shape of a PA3, and it has a micro bead, so that's a bit different than the PA3. It feels like a good putter. I picked it up and I was like, okay, so I'm confused. They're not gonna, this whole business model of we're going to create this putter that's so great that it's the whole Scotty Cameron model that we talked about. That's not going to actually happen, because you can't. at least with this approach, that's not like nothing here is revolutionary. But with that being said, it's a good putter. Like it feels like a good thrower. It feels like a good like Connor and I both were kind of like, yeah, like I mean, if this was in another discs lineup, like I would consider it. Obviously, we haven't tested it. Like we'll have to try that out. But yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see like if this is Prodigy behind this and their whole game plan was like, yeah, we're going to have like players get hooked onto this. And like, even though we owned it the whole time, we're going to like announce the acquisition of EV7 because like now we have like these special putters. Like if that was their whole game plan, then like that's not really going to work because it's not like anything that different. But like if they had this putter in their lineup, I'm sure it would get used. Like I'm very curious to see what happens to this company and like where they go from here. Like what is their next plan? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm definitely very excited when I get back to feel them because I just switched to PA3s
honestly,
in my own bag.
You may want to halt that PA3 switch.
That's what I was going to say.
Honestly, you know what? Now that I think about it,
like,
these kind of feel like almost a crossover between a PA3 and a Prowler. They kind of bridge that gap a little bit. So you might.
So I might be the newest EV7 thrower.
I think you're going to pick them up and really like them.
Yeah, I'm very curious to feel them when I get back. Because I was excited for that to come in. Another thing, just while we're on the topic of Foundation news, I just placed our first Gateway order. So we'll get some Wizards, some Magic, some Voodoos. They also had a bunch of drivers and stuff like that. That I ordered some of everything that they had just to get it on our shelves. But I've never heard of some of the discs. The flight numbers, they seem pretty good. But I mean, you know how I feel about flight numbers. So that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But I'm definitely interested when they come in to kind of feel them, but at least Wizards and stuff like that I know are good, so that's pretty exciting stuff. But onto the world of disc golf. Within the last week we have seen another announcement coming from Paul McBeth, being that he has officially launched the Paul McBeth Foundation. Now we knew this was coming. We're the ones fulfilling his merch. I think some people might get confused by that. We're trying to make it as clear as we can on the language on the site. But basically, if you go through the Paul McBeth Foundation's website, hit shop, it takes you to our website. We're doing nothing but fulfilling it. No money from that is going straight to us. When you buy it, all of the money is going to the Paul McBeth Foundation. We're just filling the orders. But if you're wondering what the Paul McBeth Foundation is, it was basically a dream of his since like 2013. He said he found it in a notebook that it dates that far back. But it's basically they're trying to create courses and bring disc golf to areas that don't currently have access to that, whether that's in the U.S., outside of the U.S. That is like the main goal because, Paul knows what the game did for him. And being an individual game that's kind of cheap to play, he knows what it can do for other people and other kids growing up and even other communities. So, designing, developing, and putting in courses pretty much in places that don't currently have access to disc golf. I think this is another pretty big move for the sport, and the fact that there's several like foundations and charities out there. The first one that came to mind is Edge, the educational disc golf experience, right? Yeah. And I think even there's one like Uplay. There's been several ones, but this is the first one that's been like heavily backed by a star player, if that makes sense. And I can't even say this is backed. This is the player's idea, right? Right. To where this is something that I think could be very big for the growth of the sport and even just the development of the sport and expanding it into other countries and other areas, because it allows players and manufacturers and everyone to team up quite a bit under a very marketable name, right? Paul McBeth. What were your thoughts on this when it first got announced, and what are you excited to kind of see from it?
Yeah, I think obviously it's great to see. We want to see our players getting involved in this a lot more, and I'm very curious to see like disc golf. One of the things we have as a sport is our accessibility and how inexpensive it is to get into the sport. I mean, literally. Heck, I was at Falling Creek Park yesterday, and some guy is in the parking lot with discs, like a whole truck full of discs that he fished out of like ponds all across different states, and he's selling them for like $5. So like that just shows you how cheap it can be to get into our sport. You know, the only hard part about getting into disc golf is your accessibility to a course. Not even cost wise, literally just location, because they're almost always free. So, you know, this could be an area of growth in our sport that's currently very untapped. I mean, there's a lot of sports, the perfect example of a sport that, you know, like soccer is considered like a worldwide sport. Well, one of the big reasons for that is because you can play with a ball. You know, that's all you really need. That's why it has boomed everywhere in the entire world, no matter where it is. Third world country, doesn't matter. You know, disc golf, as much as it may not seem that way, you know, it's a simple game and can be played with one little disc. So,
or even like a paint can lid.
Right. Like, so I'm just curious to see, like, if with this initiative, like, I think this is really an untapped area of growth in our sport, is getting courses to areas who can't afford to put them in. It's such a simple, like, great pastime, and like, it's so addictive. I've already noticed, just over the past year, I mean, when I go out to a course, just last night, like when I was playing at a course, like the demographic is shifting. Like there's so many like college aged kids and high school aged kids at courses, like that you just didn't see that when I first got into disc golf. It was mostly older guys. And like, it's becoming more popular at that age group. Like disc golf's kind of like, I feel like disc golf's becoming cool, you know? Like it's kind of getting to that point. Like it's true though. Like, you know, it's starting to, like, disc golf like was kind of just like a weird like hobby, you know, to a lot of people. Like even to obviously to us it wasn't, but like now it's kind of becoming more mainstream. And I think, you know, initiatives like this, just getting as many courses out there as we can so that everybody has one near them. It could be what really explodes the sport, because like you're gonna have kids who, like, maybe their parents can't afford to get them started in other sports, but they can say, hey, we can go to the park and I can just give you this inexpensive disc and you can get into disc golf. Like, I think it could be huge. I'm very excited to see like where they go with it and what they end up doing and how many courses they can get out there. I would love to see, you know, more companies focus on course installation, getting as many courses out there as it can, because there are very few parks out there that will turn it down, and they're not that expensive. You know, it's 18 baskets, some tee pads and some tee signs and a little bit of work, but it's so easy, especially when you compare to even just putting in, you know, obviously a ball golf course, like that's a whole nother thing, but even just putting in like, you know, a soccer field or other things that even like disc golf course barely have to be maintenance, you know, you just, if you're already keeping, you know, care of the park, it's already done. So, you know, I think you just got to get the courses out there. So I love seeing that there's, you know, finally some kind of organization with that kind of as their mission statement. I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah, and I think if you want to learn a lot more about this foundation, you can actually check out the Nick and Matt show over on our YouTube channel, or if you're an audio listener, they should be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. They did an interview with Paul right as he kind of launched this, and they go a lot more in depth into where his ideas came from for this foundation, who he's partnering with and stuff like that. And you can also check them out on Instagram, the Paul McBeth Foundation. They have a video that also goes a little bit more in depth. But one thing that I thought was interesting too is when we're talking like communities in the US, right? If you're looking, because one thing they're talking about is putting it into like more urban areas. One thing that isn't down that like in downtown or urban areas, or even in like bigger cities like New York, Chicago, is land to put in a disc golf course, right? And so another thing that the foundation has made a part of their mission is to provide portable baskets to community centers. I know growing up, I used to volunteer at a community center downtown. It's called the Jubilee Center. And, you know, there's just tons of kids there, and they love they'd go to the gym and just play basketball, play soccer, whatever they had. It would have been amazing. I didn't know about disc golf at the time, but looking back on it, to have a portable basket in there, it's just another fun outlet that can lead to, you know, kids spending more time outside and just having something else to do and be competitive with. That's an individual sport. I think that's the biggest thing, you know, and one thing that Paul was always like has always talked about is it's something that you can just go do on your own.
Right.
You don't need to go find 10 people to play 5-on-5 basketball or whatever.
So many people that want that too. Like they want to just be able to be on their own.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Growing up, like I would go shoot basketball and that's fun, but you're not being competitive with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can just go compete against yourself and compete against the course.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about the game of golf, but golf obviously is not accessible. I mean, the cheapest course around us is like $30 for 9 holes.
Right.
Versus disc golf, you can go play, 9 courses within a 15-minute drive for free. So I think this is a great thing. I'm excited to see kind of what comes from it. I know in the video they showed Doug Bierkes, I believe that's who it was, who's on the board of the Paul McBeth Foundation, and he's also heavily involved with dynamics. That kind of shows you that this isn't going to be a disc graph foundation, if that makes sense. Like there's going to be a lot of other companies supporting this and backing it, because I think that this is something that's one of the first ones that'll be really big in the public eye as far as disc golf goes, and I think that's going to prove to be very beneficial to them. So definitely exciting to see. But sticking with Paul McBeth, the Memorial Championship happened last weekend. This year was just an A tier. First time, I think, since the start of the national tour that it has not been an Elite Series or above. But definitely weird seeing it as just an A tier. But Paul was able to reclaim, the title of the Memorial. He won it by 3 strokes over Yuli, and AB came in third there. Some Arizona locals. I know Yuli hasn't lived in Arizona for a while, but if you go far enough back, that was his backyard. Pretty solid performance out of Paul. 42 down on the weekend. Again, winning by 3. Yuli came in with 39 under, and then Anthony Barella with 38 under. Did you have a chance to watch much of the coverage?
I did watch a little bit. Memorial Golf, I don't want to say it's like boring to me, but like other than some of the holes, it kind of, you kind of see the same shots over and over again. It's a lot of hyzers. And a lot, it's a beautiful course. Like honestly, Fountain Hills and Vista out there, like those are 2 like of my very big bucket list courses, because those are courses like that I've watched so much coverage on over the years. But yeah, I mean, it's similar. It's just a lot of similar looking shots and holes. Like you typically have a lot of holes where, you got to throw it close enough, or if you're just far, it's like, oh, okay, the couple guys are at 50 feet and they have to decide whether they're going to run it into the wind and risk going OB or into the water, or if they're going to lay it up. Like very similar. It's very like deja vu watching Memorial coverage. Not to say it isn't fun to watch, just because, you do get to see a guys, throw a ton of, like Ezra, man. Let me tell you something. Ezra Aderhold, excuse me. This dude, his form, he's got very smooth form to begin with, but like he's one of those guys that like has just some of the most effortless distance I've ever seen in my life. Like his form, I don't even think his form is completely optimized for distance. And when I say that, I don't mean like his like form is pretty textbook, but he doesn't quite have the slingshot. Some guys have like that slingshot where as soon as their reach back gets to its furthest point, it is immediately going forward. That's like he is one of the guys who's more like fully extended for a little while and then just has a really fast pull through. And obviously he's, yoked, but he was throwing hyzers. Like, I mean, it just didn't even look like he was trying, and he was throwing like, there's that, it's just, isn't it? It's hole 1. That's just straight that hyzer over the water, right?
Yeah. Like 390.
Yeah. So it's like 395, and he threw it it was so high and on so much angle out of his hand. And I was like, oh, that's in trouble. And it just kept pushing forward. And I was like, and he was like beyond the basket. That dude, Ezra Aderhold, that's going to take me a while to adjust to that. He's a stud. He's a stud.
Yeah, it's definitely, that was one of the storylines, that we talked about last week coming out of Vegas into Memorial. We had basically 2 that we were looking at, right? Which was Ezra and Brody. Both again put on solid performances.
Definitely not like anything crazy, but not enough to be like, oh, the first tournament was a fluke. Like they both put up solid rounds.
I mean, they actually finished within 3 strokes of each other. Ezra in 22nd, Brody in 23rd. But yeah, I was very impressed with Ezra. and also I was impressed with Brody as well. There were some rounds where Brody was not in it. He just was not playing good. I was only looking at the score for his rounds. Obviously, it just did not look like he was in it. And then he would find a way to birdie like the last 5. To get himself back. It was very like grind, and it showed.
Yeah,
it was encouraging to me to watch and see basically how resilient he was in some of those rounds where it's not going your way. A lot of players, myself included in that. Would just quit. Like, it's not quit, but like,
very few players, very few guys that don't like roll over and die after, having a round position away. You very, very rarely see guys who consistently will end their rounds on hot streaks like that. Yeah.
So that was kind of cool, encouraging to see. It's definitely gonna be interesting going into Waco, which we'll talk about that a little bit more. I'll give you some insights, what I've been seeing on the course, but it'll be interesting to keep watching them because Waco is going to be the first
initial gap,
somewhat wooded test.
Yeah,
it's what I mean.
It's going to be the first time that we have to watch the players hit tight initial gaps, and
exactly,
it is going to be for Ezra and Brody, like the two guys that we're really keeping our eyes on. It's going to be their first test of like how hard disc golf holes can be on this tour and how they handle them. It separates the guys who might just dominate open courses from the really good players.
Mm-hmm. And back to what you were saying about the Memorial, watching it, it's like deja vu over and over.
Yeah,
I think that this is one of the, because when I hear the Memorial, it just is still like iconic in my mind,
it's
right? Like much, when I see the coverage, I just like get excited. You know what I'm saying? But I think this is one of the first, in my memory at least, tournaments that we're seeing where the sport has outgrown the course.
Yeah.
Where the venue, no matter how iconic, it can't be a pro tour or national tour. I just don't think, I know the reasoning was that they couldn't get the course closed down. And I believe there's even
the reasoning is that they didn't want to.
Yeah.
Allegedly. I believe it's because they couldn't, but they said it's just that they didn't want to.
Yeah. So I know that's the reasoning, but we've been hearing it for a while now. And I think that with the Pro Tour kind of parting ways with it, I think we're going to slowly see it. But we've been hearing it for a while of players basically just saying like, it's kind of boring. Like, you just go out and you just throw a bunch of hyzers. If you go far enough back, the Memorial I don't feel like has always been the hyzer fest. It's in recent memory has, but if you go far enough back, when the course was designed and put in and the first Memorial Championships and stuff, I'm sure that some of those holes were like hard to get to, but because of disc technology and how the game's evolved, now players are throwing mids where, in the 90s you had to throw a fairway type
They're
thing.
too good. They're just too good.
Yeah. And now Vista, I think, is a solid course.
Yeah.
It provides a little more challenge than Fountain. But if you look at the holes out at Fountain, there's only 4 that averaged over par, and every other hole averaged under par. So your average, if you were a good pro and you're not shooting double digits at Fountain, you're probably losing strokes to the majority of the field.
Yeah,
when it's all said and done. Yeah, so it's definitely something I think this is something we'll start to see a little bit more, where some of these more iconic tournaments, the courses are either going to have to change. Like USDGC, I think, can stay iconic because the course changes so much every year.
Yeah,
they adapt it.
USDGC has never played easy.
Yeah,
too much OB.
But I think part of it is because it's adapted to the game. If you look back, hole 17, for instance, there was a point where it was just an easy hyzer, like 200 foot. I mean, I'm sure it was still terrifying.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever an easy shot on that hole
compared to current hole 17.
Right. It definitely was. It was easier. They have adapted that course. Yeah, very well.
Yeah, they've adapted it
now,
every way, shape, and form.
They've done it in some bad ways though. Mozzarella sticks. I'm looking at you, but
they have experimented a lot.
Yeah, they're not afraid to, which is good.
Elsewhere and bring it to a major once you know it's good. But regardless, they're willing to adapt it. And that's something that I think that courses are either going to have to adapt, some of these iconic courses, or change. Yeah, basically is what it comes down to. On the FPO side, though, it was, it started off with Valerie Mandujano coming out hot.
Yep.
Through 2 rounds, she was the leader, but then round 3 did not go so well for her. No. She lost 16 strokes to who ended up being the winner in Owen Scoggins.
Yeah.
She was able to gain 2 of those back the final round, but that obviously was nowhere near enough. So we ended up with a battle between Owen Scoggins and Haley King. Owen was able to beat her out by 1 stroke, 5 down to 4 down. And you had Valerie Mandujano at 5 over par. And then the rest of the field was 12 over and above. Sheesh. Not exactly the top 3 we expected. Well, I can't say expected because I could have picked any one of these 3, but I don't think either of us did, correct?
What are you talking about? I think we both had Owen. We both had. Yeah, I think that was your exact. No, you're I had
Jessica Weiss.
I
definitely had Jessica
You had Weiss, but then you had Haley King and you had
Owen
Scoggins. So you almost had it.
Yeah.
I was off by 1 as well. My only miss was Jessica Weiss as well.
I think we were basically. What I was saying is basically I didn't want to say it, but now you're making me say it. Jessica Weiss didn't perform as good as I was expecting.
Yeah, no.
That's what I was trying to get at there.
Okay, yeah, she was the only one that we missed on. She just had a bad week. It seemed like
it was mainly her first round. Her first round, she was 13 strokes out of the lead after the opening round out at Fountain. And Fountain can do that. That initial, if you're having some trouble with OB,
right?
It can do that.
It can jump on you quick out there anytime you have roped OB and. Well, it's not really roped, but you get the point. There's just a lot of like open OB. Like it can get overwhelming very quickly.
No, for sure. But I mean, Valerie, Haley, and Owen, I really would have liked to have seen Valerie hang on to the lead and take down. Obviously this isn't a Pro Tour event, but it was still a decent field. You were missing Paige and Kat, but you still had Owen, Haley, Valerie Mandujano, Alexis Mandujano, Jessica Weiss. You still had several very good players out there. So it's definitely a good win for Owen. Watching her at Las Vegas, I feel like I said this in last week's coverage. She might be the best FPO putter I've seen.
She's very good. Yeah. It's definitely the strength of her game.
There was every putt she stepped up to, I was very confident. This is dead center.
Well, and the thing is, like, she keeps it in bounds. That's why she's had success at these last 2 courses. I think Waco, maybe she could get exposed there, but I think she can prove that if you keep the disc in bounds, even if you're not launching it out there with Paige and Kat, you keep the disc in play and you make your putts, like you're never going to be too far out of it. And that's kind of just what she's been doing.
That's very true. Yeah, for sure. Especially the more technical it gets, Waco will definitely be an interesting watch because typically the more technical it gets, the more it favors a player like Owen to where if she can keep it in the fairway and make putts, which she's been able to do the past 2 weeks, even though it's been wide open, then the scales will tip in her favor a little bit because you take away Paige and Kat's distance advantage. Right. Which there's going to be a slight distance advantage out at Waco with all the open holes. But once you get in the woods, that advantage is kind of gone.
Yes.
So Waco is basically going to be telling on every single storyline front that we have out there.
It is going to be the first course of its kind on the tour this year. So we're just going to, we're going to learn a lot about the field at Waco for sure.
Absolutely. Now, before we jump into Waco, it's time for a fan favorite segment, Trevor's Trivia. I'm very interested in how this is going to go. What do you have for me today, Trevor?
Well, so, very fitting since you're in Texas, I figured we'd do a little Texas trivia today.
Texas trivia. All right.
So let's see how much you've learned about your current accommodations. I don't know if you're going to know very much to any of these questions. You may know some of them.
I probably will not.
But I know that our Texas listeners will probably know most of them. And if anything, you're going to be educated on where you're at right now.
All right.
So
sounds good.
We're going to start off with our first question. How many 1,000 rated players and above are there in Texas?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot for sure. I'm going with, I feel like Texas was like second to California. So I'm going to go with like 30.
No, the answer is 19. You know what's crazy?
I almost said 20.
You know what's crazy?
I almost said 20.
Is I was looking through the states because after I saw that there was only 19 in Texas, I was like, that seems low. But then I looked at the players who are in Texas. I was like, oh, okay. I was looking through the states, and California was one of them that I looked at. And there's just not – it's so scattered, the 1,000 rated players. Like, even California, I don't even know if California had more than 19. Like –
did they not?
It was close, I think.
Interesting.
But, like, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah,
I know there's like 400,000 plus rated players now, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
there's a whole lot.
They're spread out pretty good. They must be.
Yeah.
So this next question you might know, with the recent ratings update, but who is the highest rated player in Texas?
I do not know that.
You would
actually, yes, I do. Andrew Simmons.
Yep, there it
is.
is
in the world. 1044 rated.
So if you don't know about this guy, his name is Andrew Simmons. He played his very first rated tournament.
A flex start,
it was
mind
a flex start. Played one round, shot 9 down, 1044, and that is his first rating. And he is, what is he, the top 6 player in the world?
Yeah, he's number 6.
I mean,
so this is
criminal.
I'm gonna pause you on this one because I want to talk about this topic for like half a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Someone in Discord added me the other day, right? Like notified me. They added me in a message, and they were like, "This shows how broken the rating system is." And I actually said this on Twitter. I'm like, no, like that. The rating system did exactly what it's supposed to do. He shot a good round. It was 1044 rated. That's his rating.
The only way you could
the issue.
Go ahead.
Okay, as I say, the issue is how much weight the media and people in general put on ratings, because now it shows how flawed that is. Because if you're trying to compare the best players in the world, and then the 6th best player in the world is someone who, it was a similar situation with Jackie Chen, right? He popped off a few different tournaments. He was 1040 rated like a year or two ago. You know, these players, they're getting these great ratings, but it's not against the best players in the world. So it's hard to know where do they actually stand. You know, yeah, he shot 1044 rated, but that could mean he's 980 rated because his second round might have been 920 had there been a round. You know what I mean?
Well,
It doesn't tell anything about consistency or anything like that. So you can't rank him as a top 10 player in the world. Not that anyone necessarily would.
Yeah.
But when you look at it at a larger and larger scale, it just continues to show that like ratings don't tell the full story, basically.
Well, there's a couple of fixes. The quick fix would just be like, well, you're not included in world rankings until you have a certain amount of ratings completed, like a certain amount of rated rounds, you know?
Yes and no. So get this, right? I went to lunch with, I'm pretty sure this is all public knowledge. It happened years ago.
Okay.
But I went to lunch with Yuli and Brody the other day, right? And we went to Torchy's Tacos, my first time there, but that's irrelevant to the story. So we were talking about ratings and how, you know, because what I didn't know is the world ranking that the PDGA comes out with at the end of the year, 40% of the world ranking is made up by your player rating. And so Yuli was upset one year because he got snubbed from the President's Cup team because his rating was 1017. And had his rating been 1030, so he was like 11th in the world. Had his rating been 1030, he would have made the President's Cup team. That was how much difference the rating made in the world ranking, right? And so he posted something on like one of the forums and basically said like, I could be 1030 rated if I didn't play so many C tiers. Like, this is silly that just because I play more disc golf, I'm getting penalized. And so someone bet him $1,000. They said, that's not true. In 6 months, you can't be 1030 rated. I bet you $1,000. So he was like, yeah, I can. So he took the $1,000 bet, right? And then for the next few months, he didn't play any C tiers. He said, I didn't change anything else. I just didn't play C tiers. And he said 4 months into the bet, he was 1035 rated.
Yeah. Well,
so that's what frustrates me about factoring and weighing ratings so much.
Okay. Well, that's why I was saying, like, that would be the quick fix would be like, you need to have more ratings, but like the real fix would be that you just have to weigh them significantly less and weigh Elite Series finishes the most. You know, I think they need to come up with a new algorithm.
No, here's the end all be all in my head. I think this is the right answer. Every pro I've talked to has said, yeah, I've said that many times. Once you get to 1,000 rated, it's like you get to a scratch golfer. That's what the 1,000 rated was based on. So it's just, you get to 1,000, it's 1,000 plus.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then for world rankings, we consider A tiers and above, or we consider Elite Series and above. I don't care which one. But something to where if you're Paul and you go play a weekly series, because this happened, you don't lose your spot as the number 1 rated player in the world because you went and played a weekly series when you're back home in California with 3 discs. Yeah. Like, how does that affect that he's not number 1 rated in the world anymore? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Carry on. Trevor's trivia.
All right. Where am I? Okay. Next question. Who is the reigning Texas State champion? Now, I'll give you a little bit of a hint. There wasn't a ton of big names out there last year. So think about Texas guys.
I mean, right off the bat, I would say Emerson, but I feel like that's not it.
It's not.
I'm going to go Tristan Tanner.
Bradley Williams.
Oh, I should have known that. I forgot he existed.
Yeah, so we all do
I wonder
sometimes.
when that guy's getting back on tour.
I don't know.
He's got like the smoothest form I've ever seen.
He has great form.
I've ever seen. He throws it so effortlessly.
Yeah, he really does. 2 more questions. Next one. How many world championships have been hosted in Texas?
Does that include Am World and stuff?
No,
and like Am Double World?
Just the PDGA Worlds, just the main event.
0.
No, there's been 3. But they were a long time ago. 94, 95, and 02. And Klima won all of them.
Okay. Well, I don't feel so bad for not knowing that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And then has there ever been, this is the last question, has there ever been a world champion who's from the state of Texas?
I mean, is it just yes or no? Do you want me to name the person?
You can say yes or no.
Yes.
No.
Dang it.
You went with the odds. You really think I'd ask you a yes or no question and the answer would be yes?
I was trying to think like.
There's never been one. No Texans. A lot of Californians, a lot of Floridians, and Nate Doss. But
I bet you there's a lot of states. With no.
Oh yeah,
no
there's a
titles.
ton, but like Texas has a pretty big disc golf scene, but it's pretty surprising that we haven't had a Worlds there since 02. And
I think part of it is the courses.
No, I agree. I think
what course would you host it at?
I mean, I don't know, man. We only played a couple courses in Texas, and that one we played was incredible.
Yeah.
Was incredible. Like that was pretty
what was
darn.
that?
It was BBO and 2.0.
Yeah,
and
I don't remember the actual name. It had a real name, Trinity Falls.
Yeah, and like that course right there was pretty darn close to world champ quality.
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
So I'm just surprised about that. Texas disc golf scene, they have a great scene down there. They just
they do. They really do.
They need to get some pros up on the radar. Their big up and comer right now is Mason Ford. He's been playing good golf this year. Up to 1028 rated. It's good golf.
He's that high now. Wow.
Yeah, he's getting up there. He's sneaking his way up there under the radar right now. I just put him on the radar, so there you go.
He's on the radar. He's out here at Waco. I know that. I've seen him.
Look for him to play really well at Waco, on his home turf.
For sure. So looking forward into Waco. I think there's several storylines here. Now we have a new one in Mason Ford.
Mm-hmm.
We also are going to be able to see how Paige and Kat, like, what is the separation between them when you add Woods into the equation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas Challenge dominated.
Yeah.
Waco, are they going to dominate? That's, I still think probably those are going to be the number 1 and 2 going into it, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. We have to look at, on the MPO side, we have to look at Brody Smith. We have to look at Ezra Aderhold. We now have to look at Mason Ford. I believe he was the Rookie of the Year 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm, he was.
And then, I think up top, the same guys are going to finish up top, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see who can sneak their way in there. If you remember last year, it obviously ended around early, I believe. But you had Colton Montgomery taking it down. You've also in the past, this has been the tournament where we've had several Pro Tour winners come that aren't your consistently top guys, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is one of those events that produces those kind of like
I think we've even seen like a few different playoffs with Jeremy Colling and James Conrad. I just saw a stat that I thought was fascinating, and I just remembered it on Twitter. Let me see. I know the account it came from. Yeah, here it is. So this account, Statmando, on Twitter, they've been doing a bunch of statistic stuff. Very interesting stuff. In 2017, Jeremy Colling and James Conrad were tied at 167 strokes and went to a playoff. Throughout the 4 years of Waco as a Disc Golf Pro Tour event, Jeremy Colling and James Conrad are still tied for the lead with 625 strokes from MPO players who participated all 4 years. So out of everyone who played all 4 years, you have Jeremy Colling and James Conrad. They're tied with strokes for the lead.
I like hearing that stat because I just picked James Conrad in my Grip 6 Pick 6. So
Yeah.
he was my sleeper pick. But yeah, that's interesting. I'd be curious to know, like, you hear that stat and you're like, oh wow, but then like, are there some really good players that like didn't play one of the years, like when it first existed? Like, I feel like
this is just since it's become a pro tour.
That's
so
what
they would have to have skipped it since it became a pro
when
tour.
the pro tour first started, like they didn't, like not all the pros played every event. So that's what I'm wondering. I'm sure it's still pretty impressive when you look at the list. That especially for Cole.
Well, what I'm impressed by is that they're tied down to the stroke.
Well, you know what, and what else is interesting about that is like you're looking at a primary backhand player and a primary forehand player.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even more fascinating.
That's something that I've noticed. I've filmed practice rounds with Paul and Nick Carl, and then with Brody and Adam Hammes. And they were, the way that the two cards attacked the course were completely different. It was very interesting to me. On Paul's card, obviously, basically on both cards, you have Paul and you have Adam Hammes, right? And they're kind of like leading the practice round.
Right.
Obviously, there's not actually like a leader.
Right.
But they make the course look a lot easier. So when you're like looking at it,
right,
you see Paul throw a backhand, it makes it look like that's the shot. So it was very interesting to see lines where Adam and Brody both kind of made it look like such an obvious forehand line. And then you watch Paul play it and it looks like such an obvious backhand line watching him throw it.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of these like par fours and even some of the par threes, they don't have like a you must forehand this or you must backhand it type of a line.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
whatever you're comfortable with.
It's just so technical that whatever you're comfortable with getting a disc there.
A lot of those fairways, especially the tight fairways at Waco, like you're just kind of trying to push like there's definitely both options, but like some guys can't throw that low ceiling turnover and that's why they go to the forehand, which like might be a little more difficult to push up, but like it's just the more consistent shot. Yeah, it's just whatever you're gonna hit that first line with, basically.
One thing that I thought was funny is one of the holes out here. I'm trying to remember what hole it is. It's a par 4, a very hard par 4. I think it actually used to be a par 5. You go far enough back, but maybe not. It's a hard par 4, and basically the tee shot is like a tight tunnel and it curves hard right.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So when Brody and Adam played it, they both threw, hyzer forehands. And Brody literally said, because Jeff, I think, threw a backhand. Jeff Corns was playing with him. One of them tried throwing a backhand, just like tried it. And Brody literally was like, yeah, this is not a backhand hole. Like, you have to be crazy to throw a backhand here. I remember that.
Yeah.
Then Paul and Nick step up and pure backhands to, probably 100 feet in front of where the forehands were landing.
Yeah, the backhand
made it
on
look
that hole,
so easy.
The backhand on a hole, if you can throw it perfectly, you're going to be able to carry further to the right and down that fairway. Yeah. But it's just a lot scarier.
They all ended up with threes.
Yeah.
When it was all said and done. But it was definitely like you had to choose where you wanted your hard shot. Did you want an easy forehand off the tee and then a harder up shot?
Yeah. Or
a hard backhand off the tee? But it's been very interesting to like watch these practice rounds and see, two completely different groups playing and seeing how they're choosing to attack the course and just playing within their strength. But I think it makes sense that you have James Conrad, a predominantly backhand player, and you have Coling, because there's pretty much every hole out here you can throw whatever shot you're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
There's not really like you have to throw a backhand if you want to this hole type thing. Another interesting change that I've heard has been made. UDisc still has it as a par 4, but I believe it's hole 15 out here on the course. It's the one that has the road on the left, the fence line on the right, and then that weird like fenced looking area in the middle that's just kind of there.
Oh, that you can go for?
According to what Brody said yesterday, and I believe he saw it in the player's manual, they've changed that to a par 3.
That is ruthless.
I'm going to look that up right now to double check it, because
absolutely ruthless if that's a par
3. We were doing the scores. We were going through and doing like the scores on UDisc for the video we were shooting.
Yeah.
And they had it as a par 4 on UDisc.
Man, I hope they put it in drop zone if that's a par 3, because that could be a mess.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
That could be an absolute mess on that hole. Because
I think Brody was like, well, they're just trying to make people be dumb enough to go for it. And Paul stepped up, and it was funny because Paul was joking about it because he was with Brody at that point. He's like, "Oh, now it's a par 3. I've got to go for it. I don't have a choice." But obviously, he just laid up.
Yeah.
Well, Paul went for it. Yeah, MPO it's a par 3, FPO it's a par 4.
I think that's kind of dumb because I don't like the let's make the course harder by just changing the par. I think Brody mentioned that last night. But it's like somebody going for the green and getting the eagle is way more excited than somebody going for the green and getting the birdie for starters. Yeah. So if we're gonna an eagle's and a gettable eagle, it's still one stroke better than a birdie. So a birdie is one stroke better than a par. Par, just because it's named something, just because you make it a par 3 doesn't mean people are gonna go for it more often. I don't think.
So this is actually an interesting debate that Brody and I got into for basically several hours yesterday over the span of the different practice rounds. Yeah. It just kept getting brought back up. And you just said it, so I think you're going to agree with Brody here. So when it comes to the course's difficulty, does changing it from a par 4 to a par 3 make the course more difficult?
No. Doesn't make the course more difficult.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said no. And Brody goes, yeah, of course it does. And basically was like, how would it not make it more difficult? And so basically to me, if you're
how you
looking
interpret
at
difficulty of a course.
Sure, it's harder. But what I was telling him is I think that Northwoods Gold is harder than Independence Park as a course. But wait, what did I say there?
You said
I think Northwoods Gold is harder than Independence Park, but I feel like when pros go out, they're more likely to shoot under par at Northwoods Gold than Independence Park. That doesn't mean Northwoods is easier.
Yeah, it depends. It depends how you interpret the difficulty of a course, because if you're talking about which one, if your definition of a course is just shooting par or better, then yeah, by changing the par to make it a par 3, you are making it harder to shoot par. That is true.
Yeah,
but as far there, especially with the disc golf attitude, I mean, we've noticed this with the pros. Those guys do not seem to be too concerned with their relationship to par, which exactly. is sometimes to a fault, but also they're very much, disc golfers do seem to stick to their game very much. They're going to stick to their game plan. So you changing that par is not going to change the way they're going to play that hole. They're going to just.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to explain to Brody is he's coming from a golf mindset, right? Where in golf, par they have a set rule of how to define par. You hit it to the green and then 2 putts.
Yeah, in golf it's a bit different because if you changed a par 5, let's say you have a 480 foot par 5, okay, which would be very very reachable, and you make that a par 4. In ball golf, you are never in a million years going to see some guy step up to a 480 foot par 4, hit it 300 yards to 180. Let's make the example of 500 and let's make it a 510 foot par 5. So you're never in a million years going to see a guy, if it's a par 5, he may hit his drive 300 yards, have 210 into the wind and be let me lay up to 100 yards and hit my wedge in. I have a birdie putt. But you are never in a million years going to see a guy on a 510 foot par 4 lay up into the fairway. He's never doing that. He is 100 million% just going to hit his 4-iron and trying to hit the green. Ball golf, it is way harder to get up and down. So in disc golf, if you're laying up and you successfully lay up, you have just made par. Congratulations. In ball golf, if you lay up, you still got a lot of work to do. So therefore, you're going to try with everything you've got to get yourself onto that putting surface where you have the best chance of getting up and down in 2 strokes there. So that's the main difference, because in ball golf, I would agree with his point. You're making the course way harder.
Exactly.
Disc golf,
that's what I was trying to tell him.
It's too easy to lay up from 150 and in disc golf. Too easy.
Yeah, that's where the golf becomes a completely different game. When we look at rules and big picture stuff, they're the same game. But when you look at tiny, I feel at least from an outside player,
Yeah.
The short game in golf is like one of the hardest parts of the game.
It is the hardest part. Yeah.
That's the easiest part in disc golf.
Exactly. Because
You know what I
like
mean?
laying up in disc golf.
I can give my wife Lizzie a putter and she's gonna get up and down from 100 feet.
Right. I could do it blindfolded.
Not getting up and down from 100 yards.
And like literally a 3-foot putt and ball golf is hard to make. Whereas once you get within 10 feet of a disc golf pin, it's a gimme. So
so that's where I think because Paul agreed with me and Brody was like, y'all are insane. I was like, well, one thing you have to realize is with disc golfers.
I hope he listens and hears my line of thought, and hopefully he kind of aligns with that.
Well, because when you're looking at it, like
I'd like to hear
if you ask most pros, they're playing to Ironman par in their head.
Yeah,
they know where they're at in relation to 54.
Right. A lot of guys.
Like we're so trained to not even think about course par because we're just we know I'm 3 up to threes.
The thing is, and
you
like
play so many different courses.
A lot of guys, like most disc golfers, if you know what you're doing, you're gonna have a game plan going into a certain hole. So like their game plan for almost everybody is gonna be lay up and take par. The only way that's gonna change is if it's coming down to the wire and they need to grab an extra stroke. But that's the exact same thing as if it was a par 4. The only way their game plan is gonna change is if it's coming down to the wire. They need an extra stroke. Like that point in which they decide when they're going to go for that green is not going to change. And here's the other thing. We talk about, like, I think disc golf, maybe they're confused because, like, we do a lot of times complain about how courses can be too easy and we need more defense for the course. But this is not what we're talking about because, like, eagles...
No.
Like these are great holes where you can go for it and get the eagle. Like eagles are exciting and like this is an eagle that you have to earn. It's not an easy one. That drive is really hard.
I saw Paul do it 4 times in a row yesterday.
That's impressive.
2 Zeus's and 2 Onyxes, but
that's impressive.
It's very hard. He's the only person I've seen put inside the circle all week.
Right. I mean, and like when we talk about course defense and making the course harder, like don't be lazy and just change the number, especially right for the tournament's supposed to start. Like,
well, that's what
add stuff to the course.
Like, what's the point? Is what Brody said. He's like, what's the point in changing the par? And I was like, well,
there is none.
The point is basically. It doesn't make it an easier hole for FPO, but it makes their scores more comparable to MPO.
Right.
Basically, so like you don't have we've talked about this multiple times. So then you don't have the hot round FPO being 5 over par.
Right.
It helps aid in getting their scores closer to an MPO score so that when you're talking about FPO, when you're covering FPO, you can be like Page shot 9 under versus Page shot 1 over. That just sounds better, even though it's the same round. Shooting wise.
Yeah, I don't mind like if a course has to change par because they legitimately feel like, you know what, this hole should be this par. Like that's one thing, but it feels forced to me with like the whole FPO thing. Like that, I think that's what they're trying to do, try to reduce that gap, or maybe they're even just trying to protect their par a little more. Like we don't want guys shooting 15 under here. I mean, Paul shot 18 under there at one point, so maybe that has something to do with it. But like, yeah, I like it's one thing if you have a hole that you decide is a tweener and you're like, okay, we need to change the par here, but this just seems forced to me.
Yeah,
it's not a tweener. It's a hard hole.
So as we go into this weekend, there's a few things to note, right? First off, Texas wind, holy cow.
Is it whipping?
Oh, it is. I mean, today, for instance, Paul, yesterday, I'm going to film Paul today, one of his practice rounds. And he was like, yeah, I want to go out in the morning so we can beat the wind. And I like pulled up my weather and I was like, Paul, it's 15 miles an hour from 7:30 a.m. to after 5 p.m.
15 is not dreadful, but what are the gusts like?
No. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's sustained. Like you're on the course and it's one thing that's great, but also sucks is the lav mics that we've gotten are amazing at blocking the wind.
So you don't appreciate it though.
But yeah, then people can't tell how windy it is. Because I mean, there's sometimes where I I can barely hear Brody, like when I'm standing there filming him.
Right.
And you know how loud Brody is.
Exactly.
But the wind's just whipping that much. Like I would bet that the gusts were getting up to like 25, 30 miles an hour. Because you got to remember too, they're right next to a river.
Oh yeah, that's true. Wind.
So that just brings more. So the open holes are absolutely ripping. The wind. Once you get into the woods, it's really not too bad in the woods.
Yeah, no.
The woods block all the wind. But one thing that's going to be
the scoring spot then in the woods.
Sorry, what'd you say?
That could be the scoring alley. Yeah, everybody's got to score in there.
Absolutely. One thing that's going to be interesting to note as well is players that have an earlier tee time on Friday are going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage looking at the weather. It looks like there's going to be like early morning, either thunderstorms or at least rain. In the morning, it's going to loosen up as the day goes on.
There's some good players playing early.
Yeah, and that also seems to be the trend for Sunday as well. Saturday originally was supposed to be rain, but now it's looking like just wind. But basically, if you're teeing before 10 a.m., you're most likely going to be teeing off in some heavy winds, and it looks like some possibly heavy rains. It keeps fluctuating,
so
but
we're gonna figure out who
there's a lot of high-rated players teeing off before 10 a.m.
Yeah, I think Eagle McMahon was one of them. I think the highest rated player was teeing off very early, if I remember correctly.
I know Adam Hammonds was looking great in the practice round. I think he shot like an 11 down during the scored round. He's teeing off right at 10 a.m. So he's kind of on that edge.
Yeah, Paul
Eagles teeing off at 12:30. Calvin Heimberg's at 8 a.m.
Eagles 12:30. Who did it? Heimberg. Heimberg, yeah. He's super early.
Yeah. He's teeing off at 8 a.m. So, he's going to probably have a decent amount of his round in the rain on Friday. So that's definitely going to be interesting to kind of see how things shape up there.
He can play in the rain, though, if we remember last year. That's soaked polo.
Yeah, he did not seem to care about the rain at all.
Yeah.
Other than that, it seems like most of the highest rated pros, you have Scott Withers, 10:40, teeing off at 9:30 a.m. Most of them are 10:30 or later. So,
right.
It seems like the top end of the field won't be touched too much. You will have Mason Ford, who we were just talking about. He goes off at 8:20. So that'll be, that might affect his storyline a little bit there. And I believe Brody goes off pretty early. Brody goes off at 8:30. He's on a card with Andrew Presnell. So yeah, there's definitely something to keep a look at there. Hopefully the weather continues to change, but the wind out here during practice days has been no joke.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's been the course has been playing pretty difficult when it's all said and done. But yeah, I'm definitely excited for the tournament to start. I'll be doing a lot of Instagram story coverage and stuff like that, especially of Brody's first round, because he's not being covered by anyone, and I don't think we're able to do individual shot by shot of Brody. So I'll be doing a lot of Instagram stories to give people coverage. But let's head into some predictions. Let's start it with FPO, because we've talked a lot about MPO. Who is your top three coming out of this week? Who's taking these down?
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. We have the Paige Cat duo back, so it's going to be Paige Cat 1-2, and then Owen Scoggins will be my third, because like we talked about, I think she could play well here, and like I think she's just going to be consistently top 5, top 6 this year in the FPO. Her game just seems to be that way. So yeah, I still at that point, like I'm not going to pick anybody other than Paige and Cat 1-2 if they're there.
Yeah, I'm picking Paige to win. For sure. I think she's been dominating this year. I'm actually not picking Katrina Allen second. She's going to be my third place
push
pick.
Owen in second?
No,
Haley?
I'm sneaking up Sarah Holcomb. If you remember, Sarah Holcomb a few years ago, might have been last year, put on one of the worst putting performances I've ever seen at the Waco
Where's he going with this?
tournament, but was still in contention.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is this course just plays to what she's comfortable with throw-wise. So if she's able to, be making her putts, which, her putting this year, we haven't got to see much of her, but I'm hoping if she's able to, rein her putt in and have her putts be dialed to this tournament, I think that she could legitimately be challenging Paige a little bit, just because in recent memory, I think she's done pretty good at Waco. Let me actually, before I look like a complete fool, look at last year. Yeah, she came in third last year. I think 2019 might be the year I'm thinking of. Fourth in 2019. She has a good reign going with Waco. I think I'm pretty comfortable. Second in 2018. I'm pretty comfortable keeping her up there. I'm saying that it's going to go Paige first, Sarah Holcomb second, Katrina Allen third.
Fair enough. Did you research?
That's on the FPO side. Let me get back to Waco here, and let's look at the MPO side. Who do you have taken down MPO?
Gonna pick Paul again. It's gonna be hard not to pick Paul this year, especially off the back of a win. Like I feel like it'd be silly not to. this is one of the places. This is just kind of his stomping grounds where he shot 18 under at one point. So I'm still gonna go with Paul. Second, I'm gonna pick Heimberg. Another guy that's going to just be consistently sitting up there because he's so consistent. And then third is my sleeper pick. Third's the only pick this year that might be kind of exciting, and that's James Conrad. I didn't even know that stat you mentioned earlier about how good he plays at Waco, but I do know that his golf has been solid this year, considering switching manufacturers. It's an adjustment. And I like his game at this course. I like that he can throw putters really far in wind and rain, where that's a great thing to be able to do. And I know he can hit gaps and throw those shots that have to turn and stay in the air throughout gaps. His putt's looking like his old putt this year. It's looking really good. So, and he's a spin putter that helps in the wind. So yeah, he's gonna be my third place pick.
Nice. Now, I think I'm going to shake things up a little bit here.
Ooh, okay.
Let me get back to the player list. So, I'm going to go third up. Ooh. My third place pick, I think I'm sticking with you. I think I'm going to go James Conrad, third place. I'm pretty comfortable with that as well. I was thinking about Coling. Big Germ, he seems to have fallen off a little bit in my eyes.
I just dropped the merch line yesterday.
What? What'd you
dropped the merch line yesterday, though.
Big Germ did?
Yeah, all
I didn't see
jackets, hats, all kinds of stuff. Kind of look cool, to be honest. Props.
Oh, that's pretty sick. I'm a big Germ fan. I don't think he's gonna do it. I don't think he's gonna be up there. I got James Conrad coming in third. I'm going with Paul second, actually. No, I'm not. I'm sticking with my gut. James third, Calvin Heimberg second place, Ricky Wysocki taking it down. And here's why. I had my short list of who I'm picking the winner from, right?
Yeah.
Eagle, Calvin, Ricky, Paul. Mm-hmm. I'm picking the winner from one of them. I could throw Chris in there too. One of those people is winning.
Chris, we might be missing on Chris here.
Yeah. One of these, Eagle, Calvin, Ricky, Paul, Chris, one of them is winning this tournament. Okay. I'm not picking Paul for one reason, and that's simply the travel delay. I can't even really say delay. They just got on the road late Monday, a lot later than I think they planned on it. So they didn't get to the course.
You're watching him practice right now and just told me he got that hard par 3 4 times in a row. So I don't know what you're talking about, travel delay right now.
I'm just saying he did not get to the course until his first time fully playing the course was yesterday. You don't need a ton of time practicing this course. I get that. But
he owns that course.
I don't know. I just have this feeling he probably will end up top 3. He probably will. But I do not know if Paul's going to win this event. Obviously, none of us do. But I'm not picking him to win. I don't even know if Ricky was a great pick either. I don't even know how Ricky plays here. I just kind of threw it out there. But I definitely think Eagle, Calvin, Ricky, Paul, or Chris Dickerson, they're going to win pretty much every Pro Tour.
Yeah, you can't pick a bad top 3, really.
Yeah. If you have 2 of those players in your top 3, you probably got 2/3 of it right.
Right.
Paul could definitely prove me wrong. He just, in his practice round yesterday, he just seemed a little off. He obviously he obviously got those 4 that I just talked about, but those were kind of joking off. He's like, it's a par 3, I got to go for it, and then threw 4 shots, and they were all insane. His real shot was a forehand layup for a 3. I'm just saying the rest of the practice round, he had some great shots, some very Paul moments where he just threw shots that I'm like, what the heck? How did that just happen? But his putt just seemed a little off. I don't know, something about it, the round. I'm about to see him today, watch him play today. Obviously, I'll film his round today. He might change my mind out there today, but I haven't seen it yet. I saw Paul yesterday, and I think that if someone's hot, they're going to take it down.
Fair enough. You would know. Definitely
going to be a fun tournament to watch. I'm pretty excited to see. I think this is the first tournament that we're getting another camera from Disc Golf Network as well. Maybe a little bit extra coverage on there.
That's exciting.
I believe they're going to add another one in the coming tournaments. But I believe this weekend they have one more than they've had in the past. So definitely, you'll have to update us next week on how the live coverage is. I'll try to pop into it some here and there. But I'm definitely excited to see kind of how that improves. Should be a great week out here. I believe that's all we've got this week. So be sure to stay tuned to our social media. We do have some, more apparel announcements and stuff like that coming. And then obviously we've got a lot of restocks coming down the pipeline, and should be a lot of fun. Brody already announced the date, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there wasn't a lot of people. Well, you've said it now, but there wasn't a lot of people that saw that tweet. It had like 20 likes.
Enough people saw it. There's in our Discord too.
I mean, they're going to know soon. It's Monday.
Yeah, the video's getting posted today. Is it not?
It'll either be today or early tomorrow.
Yeah, so people will know.
They're going to know. They're going to know very soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Announcement about the apparel's coming out. You'll see it. It's pretty fire. Everything in it, I'm pretty stoked about. I don't know what they whipped up.
Listen,
I heard y'all destroyed my podcast studio.
No, we just moved a lot of things out of the way. I mean, I'll tell you this and this only. Connor had me flip a chair for this video, so it's going to be aggressive.
That just seems like a normal day at Foundation.
And also, a lot of water was thrown at me at high velocity.
Okay.
So that's exciting.
That's probably good. I'm excited to see it. We also have a video dropping next week. The March 16th is the most excited I've been for a video to hit our channel.
Yes.
Possibly ever. The idea behind it, some other stuff within it. I think it's going to be a pretty amazing video. If you're listening to this podcast, you're going to want to check it out over on YouTube. And be sure to tune into the Nick and Matt show Monday nights. I believe this Monday will Nick be back in the studio. This might be the final Monday that Nick's not back in the studio. But they've been doing a great job. It's been a super entertaining podcast. You're definitely going to want to listen to that if you're into more interview style podcasts. Everyone's been enjoying it. But other than that, I will talk to you guys. We will talk to you guys. I feel like I'm alone here.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm all lonely. We will talk to you guys again next week. Thanks for listening.